Aloha, this is Ben Kaneaiakala. Again, thank you for joining me. We've started our new series on step 4, and this is part 3. We are digging into this thing. We're talking about instincts. We're talking about instincts exceeding their purpose. We're talking about when we're focused more on money or on finances or on sex, what can happen and all that kind of stuff. And we're just going to continue digging into this thing and continue bringing light to why we might be struggling or having a hard time with something, you know. And the fourth step, made a searching and fearless moral inventory, starts that process of finally us being able to put paper to pen or pen to paper and really taking a look at ourselves. So we're on page 43, last paragraph here, where it says, nor is the quest for security always expressed in terms of money. We always think that money brings security, and it really doesn't bring security. It just brings more fear and worry. How frequently we see a frightened human being determined to depend completely upon a stronger person for guidance and protection. This weak one, failing to meet life's responsibilities with his own resources, never grows up. Disillusionment and helplessness are his lot. Whoa. So even when we depend on someone too much, we end up failing to meet life's responsibilities. When we put too much dependency, or some people call it codependency, when we depend on somebody to make us feel better about us, we're continuing the suffering. We're continuing the conflict, and all it does is it keeps us from seeing and taking responsibility with the resources that we already have. Our instincts are our resources. The God-given instincts are our resources. We just have to get our thinking out of the way so that we can actually operate from that place of this God-given instinct or instincts. So all it does is it creates more disillusionment and helplessness, and in time all his protectors either flee or die, and he is once more left alone and afraid. And that's what happens when we put too much dependency on people, places, and things. Eventually these people, places, and things are going to go away. Those good feelings that we're feeling are going to disappear because they're all short term. Anytime we put dependency on people, places, and things, it's always short term. It'll never fill the hole in the donut that we're trying to find, you know. And that's what's going to continue happening as long as we continue to depend upon other people, places, and things. So we have also seen men and women who go power mad. So now we're talking about the person who's dependent upon somebody else. Now we're going into the power mad person, who devote themselves to attempting to rule their fellows, to be superior to man, to everybody. The power mad person. These people often throw to the winds every chance for legitimate security and a happy family life. Whenever a human being becomes a battleground for the instincts, there can be no peace. And that's what happens when we get so dependent upon people, places, and things that we never really find true peace. We're always trying to find it in something. And the more we continue to try and find it in something, the more conflict and the more pain and suffering. We'll continue to be alone. We'll continue to feel as if we're not worth it, or I am not worth it, or whatever it might be. But that's what continues to happen, and there is no peace. So, but that is not all of the danger. Every time a person imposes his instincts unreasonably upon others, unhappiness follows. If the pursuit of wealth tramples upon people who happen to be in the way, then anger, that's what happens. We step on people's toes. There's anger, jealousy, and revenge are likely to be aroused. Right? That's kind of what happens with that. And so if sex runs riot, then there's a similar uproar. Demands made upon other people for too much attention, protection, and love can only invite domination or revulsion in the protectors themselves. Two emotions quite as unhealthy as the demands which evoke them. When an individual's desire for prestige becomes uncontrollable, whether in the sewing circle or at the international conference table, other people suffer and often revolt. This collision of instincts can produce anything from a cold snob to a blazing revolution. In these ways, we are set in conflict not only with ourselves, but with other people who have instincts too. And that's and that's one of the things, is that we're here in this world to live amongst people, and if we're acting out, or we're exceeding its purpose, our instincts, we then create harm. We create harm not just to others, but to ourselves. First of all, we create harm to us, and then we create harm to other people, or conflict, or pain and suffering. This is what continues to happen if we continue to go down this road of exceeding our God-given instincts, and what the true purpose is of that. And in this fourth step, we're going to cover a lot of different examples. Like, there's going to be, don't get overwhelmed with all of this stuff. This is just a lot of information, and just showing you and bringing awareness and bringing attention to how this obsessive compulsive thinking of mine, what's between my two ears, has created these excesses of our instincts. Yeah, rather than allowing our instincts to operate the way that they're supposed to be. And we get into comparing ourselves to other people. We get into judgment. We get into labels. We get into identities. We get into definitions. We get into images. Like, all these things are recorded in my mind, in my thinking. And that's what the mind is here for, is to record. And it records everything. And that's why we cannot stop our excess. That's why people have a hard time sleeping, or they're dealt with a lot of stress. That's why they go to drinking or using drugs, because there's just so much recorded information that we don't know how to disidentify or detach from all that history that's recorded within my 2 years, in my mind, in my thinking. And that's what this process allows us to do, is finally take a look at it and bring attention to it, and finally share it with somebody, and go, that's just a lot of stuff to be hanging on to. No wonder we're going down this path of whatever conflict or pain and suffering we're creating for ourselves and others, and we just end up with just more pain and suffering, and more conflict, and no peace, and no love, and no joy in our lives. And we keep trying to find that in people, places, and things. And it's too much for people, places, and things. It's way too much for people, places, and things. When we already have the resources that we need, and we just need to get all this opala, or all this past history that's recorded in my mind, out. And this step, made a moral and fearless moral inventory, is part of that process. So again, please leave comments, questions that you might have about this step, or that's coming up for you. Get into a support group, or start going and seeing a therapist, or whatever it is that you need. Go in and start bringing attention to this, and it's going to be okay. It really is. You will come out the other end, and that's what the ego fears the most: annihilation. And you're not being annihilated. You're just finally being able to take a look at stuff that's just creating a lot of turmoil. So I hope this was helpful. Again, please continue to follow us here on YouTube and on all of our social media platforms. And if there's anything else that we can do to help, please feel free to reach out. All right, you guys have a great day. Mahalo.